Welcome back to the show. Do victims have rights? It's a question that a lot of people don't really ask. You've seen Dateline at the end of the show. They'll say, oh, we were about to go to trial and the state settled out with the defendant, yet the victim's family doesn't want that to happen. What rights do we have in Florida as victims? It's a great question, a question you probably do not know the answer to, but you are about to know that answer because Rajan's here, Samantha's here. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
What is this Florida Crime Victims Bill of Rights, and what rights do we have as victims of crime here?
So the Florida Constitution, actually the voters passed it back in November of 2018. And now the Constitution has all these codified rights that you have as the victim in a criminal case. So some of them include the right to have your safety considered when the defendant is getting a bond, the right to be heard in any sentencing proceedings, or the right to be notified of those proceedings. So the Florida Constitution pretty much gives you those rights that were previously considered, but now you actually have the constitutional right to it.
And it puts a responsibility on the government to inform the victim, to let them know what's going on. I mean, beforehand, prosecutors were very professional and did that, and there were in their office mandates and statutes that require that. But now it's constitutionally required. It gives the victims rights because when somebody's a victim of a crime, it's a hard time in their life, and they need to be heard. They need to know that their voices are important, and that the government and the judges do consider their wishes in prosecution or whatever they feel.
Is this in on Google, or does someone tell me? Because I wouldn't know where to find this Bill of Rights.
Yeah, it's actually in the Constitution, and it's been passed, and it's there. It's a Florida constitutional right, and a lot of times the responsibility is on the government to keep the victim informed and to make sure that they know what's going on in the case.
I agree with Michaela though, because I am a lawyer, and I literally did not know. I've been a lawyer longer than I'd like to admit, right, Rajan?
Yes.
I didn't know about this. I did not know we had a Victims Bill of Rights in our Constitution. I didn't know that. And I think most people at home probably didn't either. Does it cut both ways though? And let me use the domestic violence example because let's be honest, there's a lot of domestic violence cases out there. And I'm the victim of a domestic violence. Yet, I look back on it, it was just a bad night. I was probably at fault too. And I say, state, I don't want you prosecuting my husband. I don't want you prosecuting my wife. I don't want to move forward. Do I have the rights as a victim in that situation to say no and stop everything?
So no, you have the right to be heard, and a lot of the times you'll actually hear the judges say that as well. So for example, if you have a plea hearing, the judge will pretty much always ask the prosecutor, hey, was the victim notified that this was happening today? And the prosecutor will tend to say, yes, they didn't want to be here. So you have the right to be heard. That doesn't necessarily mean that what you want will be what happens. So for example, if you want somebody to go to prison for 5 years for their first offense of maybe a small battery, a simple battery, more than likely that's not going to happen. But you just have the opportunity to give your input. So same goes with dropping charges. You can say you want them dropped, but that doesn't necessarily mean the prosecutor is going to go with that.
And technically, when it's a criminal case, it's the state of Florida versus the defendant. It's not the victim. The victim is theoretically a witness, and that's how the prosecutors sometimes view it. And the victim may have their wishes and may a lot of times want the charges dropped. And sometimes, if the charges go forward in certain situations, it's going to re-victimize the victim even worse. The person could lose their job. If they're not a U.S. citizen, they can be deported based on a criminal conviction on even a simple domestic battery. So, if it's going to tear the victim apart more, a lot of times the prosecutors say, well, we've got a duty. They committed a crime. We're going to subpoena you. If you don't want to testify, too bad. You're coming in, and we're going forward. And at that time, the victim needs an advocate. They need someone to let their voice be heard, and it's important. And that's what we do at our law firm. Is we don't only defend people charged with crimes, but we represent a lot of victims because what they're going through is some of the roughest times of their lives, and they need someone to hold their hand. They need someone to guide them through the process because it is a voluminous process and it is scary. And we take this responsibility very seriously.
What's going to happen, and I've seen this a million times, if you are the victim of a crime, you're going to get these weird letters in the mail. You don't know what they mean. You might get a subpoena in the mail. You might hear that you have to go to a deposition. You don't want to do these things alone. You need someone by your side as a victim because you do have rights here in this state. I'll connect you with Rajan right now, 321-282-1055. Literally, I will connect you right this very moment. What do you see coming into your office when you are representing victims? What does that really look like normally?
It can be a variety of things. It could be, just it could be a person who's been raped and, is very scared and needs people there, to hold their hands. It could be somebody who's been, taken advantage of, somebody who trusted someone and is being extorted, or, I've seen a lot of victims recently of these sexual cyberstalking, where it's revenge porn or something like that. And, a lot of times, when there's new statutes, the prosecutors aren't really sometimes familiar with them. So we take on the responsibility to research the laws, research the procedures, and present it to the prosecutor. Sometimes we will get the case, and we will do the job of the law enforcement and the job of the prosecutor initially, and present it with them with a bow, and we will work with them, make sure our victim is cooperative and stuff. And sometimes it works really good for the victim. We take this job very serious because, at the same time, we defend the people who are charged with crimes, but we also want to be there for the people who need us.
And you always hear about the system. Oh, he's in the system now. She's in the system. And normally that's referred to as someone's charged with a crime. They're going to be in the system forever. But as a victim of a crime, you can also feel like you're in the system. And it's not like customer service is priority number one oftentimes for the state, and they feel like they're in the system. And you can really help them have their own word.
Absolutely. A lot of times they come in confused, they come in scared, and they need to know, what is going on. They need to be informed. They need to, we keep track of what's going on in the case. We keep track of the depositions. We communicate with the prosecutor. We also go to court and let the judge know, what is important for this victim, and going forward on letting their voice be heard, because sometimes they feel like they are just lost in the shuffle, and we let them know, no, you're not. We are here for you, and we will put the pressure where the pressure needs to be done on law enforcement, on prosecutors. Sometimes the person hasn't been arrested yet, and the victim is screaming, I've been victimized. This has happened to me, and no one's doing anything. That's where we step in. That's where we come in, and we say, no, you're not alone. We will put the pressure on the prosecutor. We'll put pressure on the law enforcement, and we will do what we can to see, it get done.
And don't you think when the prosecution is hearing from a lawyer for the victim that maybe that file gets put on top a little bit? I'm not saying it definitely does, but they're going to be hearing from you. They know you already. I would have to think that a lot of times the prosecution, the state attorney, is going to take a harder look at that case, and as opposed to some just regular case.
We have very diplomatic relationships with all the prosecutors. We deal with them on a normal basis. And so when they hear from us, they know, we're serious about this situation. And when they hear from a defense attorney representing a victim, they know that it's something that they've got to, dot their I's and cross their T's, because, there is now someone looking over their shoulders who knows the procedures, knows what to do. And as a former prosecutor myself, and we have a former federal prosecutor in our office, so we got all the bases covered. I know what the prosecution needs to do in order to go forward on this case. And, I think, it really helps out. And Samantha can speak more. She's got very good relationships with a lot of the prosecutors.
Yeah, we are very diplomatic, but we also are aggressive when it comes to these type of cases. So the nature of being a prosecutor is you have a ton of cases, really. So
what on average would you say they're handling?
It could be anywhere from, 150, some 300 and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in big counties like Orange County here. So, I mean, it's hard sometimes for them to manage their caseload, but when you have somebody emailing you, calling you, it's going to keep reminding you. So in that sense, it does get back onto the top of their to-do list, I would say.
And that relationship, I think, is huge when you're representing victims of a crime. And again, I don't think people know that you do that. I don't know if they know they can hire someone when they're the victim of the crime. And this isn't about, okay, we want to come in and get criminal charges because we want to then sue them later in court. This is about giving victims a voice, victims the voice that they deserve when they're going through what's probably a rough time in their life. If you've been the victim of a crime, especially a violent one, you're scared to death.
Yeah.
You're scared to death, and then when you feel like you're part of the system and no one's responding to your call, you can't figure out if someone's getting charged, not getting charged. It exacerbates that really bad time of your life. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you.
Keep representing those victims out there. I think that's amazing, and I didn't even know you did it. I didn't know victims really had rights. I certainly do now.
Yeah, it's something we take, very seriously. We take, everything we do seriously, and it's also a way to give back to people who are in need.
Absolutely.
And we love that part. We love all the parts of our work, and stuff. But we're honored to have that responsibility.
If you've been charged with a crime or you are the victim of a crime, call the Joshi Law Firm right now, 321-282-1055. When we return, what is going on with immigration in this country? It's all just ahead. It's Behind the Law.